Mental clarity is not a mystical state. It is the ability to see the room you are standing in without covering it with fantasy, fear, memory, music, imaginary conversations, borrowed emotions, and future scenes that have not happened. A clear mind can look at a body and say, "This is the condition." It can look at money and say, "These are the numbers." It can look at a relationship and say, "This is the truth." It can look at a dream and say, "These are the actions missing." That is clarity, not motivation, not excitement, not hope. Clarity is clean perception. It does not flatter you, but it also does not destroy you. It simply removes the fog between your life and your attention. Many people avoid this state without realizing it because clarity has a cost. It makes excuses harder to believe. It makes delay harder to romanticize. Once you see clearly, you either act or admit you are choosing not to. The opposite of clarity is not always confusion. Sometimes it is fantasy. A man may know exactly what he should do, yet he spends hours living inside scenes where the work has already been completed. The respect has already arrived. The comeback has already happened. The conversation has already gone perfectly, and the future version of him is walking through life with power he has not earned yet. That private cinema can feel beautiful. Music makes it stronger. Films feed it. Shows extend it. Social media gives it new costumes. The mind starts building emotional worlds where the man feels successful without producing evidence. This is where the danger begins. The body remains in the same chair. The room remains messy. The bank account remains unchanged. The project remains untouched. But the nervous system has been rewarded as if movement occurred. Fantasy becomes anesthesia. It does not sharpen reality. It helps you leave it. Presence is brutal because it removes the soundtrack. Without music, the walk is just a walk. Without fantasy, the room is just the room. Without a screen, the evening reveals its true weight. Without imagined arguments and imaginary victories, you are left with the actual task in front of you. That is why presence feels boring at first to a mind trained on stimulation. Reality seems too plain because the nervous system has become addicted to dramatic emotional input. A normal day feels insufficient. A simple task feels beneath you. A quiet hour feels empty, yet the quiet hour is where command returns. The mind begins noticing what is real again: the dirty plate, the unfinished work, the weak routine, the avoided message, the body needing training, the thought that keeps returning. Reality is not as exciting as fantasy in the beginning, but it is the only place where power can be built. Music can be powerful, but it can also become a drug for imagined identity. A song enters the ears, and suddenly the mind becomes a movie. You are walking into a room changed. You are proving people wrong. You are winning arguments that never happened. You are performing greatness in private, while your real life waits unattended. The problem is not music itself. The problem is using music to escape into an emotional version of yourself, instead of using energy to build the actual version. This difference matters. Training with music can push the body through effort. Creating with music can sometimes support focus. Escaping into music for hours while acting out scenes in your head weakens clarity, because it trains the mind to prefer imagined intensity over real progress. After enough repetition, silence feels flat, because fantasy has been feeding you stronger emotions than reality. Binge-watching creates another form of fog because it lets a man borrow someone else's story when his own story feels too demanding. A show gives conflict, purpose, characters, danger, romance, victory, betrayal, tension, and resolution in a clean package. Your nervous system consumes meaning without having to create any. That is the trap. Real life does not move with perfect pacing. Real progress contains awkward pauses, boring repetitions, slow improvement, unclear feedback, and long stretches where no one is watching. Entertainment compresses meaning. Life requires construction. If you spend too much time inside other people's stories, your own story starts feeling too slow to respect. The mind becomes impatient with reality. It wants a reveal, a twist, a montage, an emotional payoff, yet the actual work asks for another quiet hour. A weak mind chooses the show. A disciplined mind returns to the hour. Maladaptive daydreaming kills clarity because it turns attention inward. At the exact moment, attention should be touching reality. The mind begins rehearsing a future instead of building one. It creates conversations instead of having them. It creates status instead of earning it. It creates revenge instead of discipline. It creates admiration instead of output. Over time, the fantasy becomes easier to enter than the work, and that is when the danger becomes serious. The man no longer uses imagination as a tool. Imagination uses him as shelter. It protects him from disappointment by giving him private glory. It protects him from effort by offering emotional reward. It protects him from rejection by creating scenes where everyone finally understands. This may soothe him for an evening, but it robs him across years. The future cannot be imagined into existence. It must be forced through behavior. Mental clarity begins with returning the mind to what is actually happening. Not what might happen, not what should have happened, not what someone might think, not what the perfect future could look like. What is happening now? The body is tired, the task is unfinished, the phone is in your hand, the room is quiet, the urge to escape has appeared, the thought of fantasy is pulling you away. That level of observation seems simple, but it is power. Once you can name the present accurately, you can act inside it. Before that, you are fighting ghosts. A man lost in imagined futures cannot fix the present because his attention is not available. A man present enough to see the present can make one clean move. One clean move becomes another. That is how fog begins to break.
A man rises faster when the fight becomes clear. Vague ambition spreads energy in too many directions, while a defined enemy gives the mind a target. The enemy does not always need to be a person. Sometimes it is poverty. Sometimes it is weakness. Sometimes it is the old body. Sometimes it is the family pattern. Sometimes it is the system that taught you to be harmless. Sometimes it is the version of you that keeps choosing comfort, delay, fantasy, resentment, and cheap pleasure. Without an enemy, the mind drifts. With an enemy, the mind organizes. A clear enemy creates pressure, and pressure creates movement. The danger is choosing the wrong enemy. If you choose people just to feed anger, you become bitter. If you choose a limitation and decide to destroy it, you become dangerous. The enemy must sharpen you, not poison you. A rival can be useful because rivalry removes softness from the imagination. When someone else is moving while you are still explaining yourself, excuses begin sounding weaker. Their discipline exposes your delay. Their output exposes your talking. Their results expose the gap between what you claim and what you repeat. This does not mean worshipping comparison or living as a slave to another man's scoreboard. That is pathetic. A rival is useful only when he becomes a mirror and a standard, not a master. You look at the man ahead and ask what his actions are proving. How does he train? How does he think? What does he sacrifice? What does he protect? Then you return to your lane with more violence toward your own weakness. A rival should not make you jealous. He should make your excuses feel disgusting. A system can also become the enemy. The system might be the job that keeps a man tired enough to never build anything of his own. It might be the algorithm that eats his attention before his real work begins. It may be the social circle where ambition gets mocked because everyone has quietly accepted defeat. Some systems are external, but many survive because they have internal permission. A man says the system is trapping him while handing it the best hours of his mind. He complains about being controlled while giving his attention to noise, his money to comfort, his body to convenience, and his future to delay. If the system is the enemy, then rebellion must become practical. Learn the skill, save the money, build the side door, protect the morning, reduce dependence. Do not merely hate the cage, study the lock. A limitation may be the cleanest enemy because it gives you something specific to attack. Weak lungs, poor focus, no money saved, low confidence, undisciplined sleep, bad eating, fear of speaking, no valuable skill. A limitation is honest because it does not require drama. It stands there in the open and says, "Here is where you are not yet strong." That can feel humiliating, but humiliation with a target becomes fuel. If the body is the limitation, the enemy is not society. It is the missed training session, the uncontrolled meal, the late night, the weak standard. If money is the limitation, the enemy is not merely the economy. It is low value, poor tracking, impulsive spending, fear of selling, and refusal to learn. A defined limitation turns vague self-improvement into war with coordinates. The most dangerous enemy is often an old version of yourself because he knows every hidden passage back into weakness. He knows how to convince you that tomorrow is better. He knows which songs turn your mind into fantasy. He knows which foods break your discipline. He knows how to make avoidance sound like recovery. He knows how to restart old loops after a bad day. Fighting that version requires more than emotion. It requires surveillance. Watch when he appears. Watch the hour. Watch the trigger. Watch the excuse. Watch the language. The old self rarely arrives with a sword. He arrives with comfort. He says you deserve the break, the scroll, the delay, the easy choice, the familiar weakness. Defeat him by recognizing him before he sits on the throne again. Finding the correct enemy requires experimentation because not every mission will wake the same fire in you. Try the gym seriously for a period. Try writing, try business, try learning a high-value skill, try building content, try sales, try a sport, try silence, try saving aggressively, try removing cheap pleasure. Test yourself in different arenas and observe what happens, not what sounds impressive, not what would make other people approve. Observe what sharpens you. Which challenge makes you feel more alive after the discomfort? Which struggle returns to your mind even after you step away? Which discipline creates respect inside your chest? Which pursuit makes the old life feel smaller? Experimentation is not drifting when it has a deadline, a metric, and honest review. It is reconnaissance. During this search, do not confuse early difficulty with a wrong path. Every worthwhile arena will humiliate you at first. The first workouts feel clumsy. The first attempts at business feel awkward. The first writing feels weak. The first days without distraction feel empty. The first serious savings plan feels restrictive. Difficulty alone tells you nothing. Look for the deeper signal. After the resistance, does the pursuit create dignity? Does it make you more useful? Does it reduce chaos? Does it make your future larger? Does it expose a weakness you know must die? If the answer is yes, stay long enough to gather real evidence. A man who quits every test at the first discomfort never discovers his enemy. He only discovers that discomfort still commands him. The correct enemy creates focus because it simplifies the day. Once a man knows what must be destroyed, decisions become cleaner. If weakness is the enemy, training becomes obvious. If debt is the enemy, spending gets judged without sentiment. If obscurity is the enemy, output becomes law. If mediocrity is the enemy, comfort loses authority. If the old self is the enemy, every repeated pattern becomes suspicious. This is why defined enemies create momentum. They remove negotiation from small choices. The mind stops asking whether the work feels good and starts asking whether the action weakens or strengthens the enemy. That question cuts through mood. It makes discipline less emotional and more strategic. A serious life needs that kind of simplicity. Commitment begins after experimentation ends. You cannot live forever sampling identities. At some point, the man must choose the war. This is where many people fail. They enjoy the search because searching protects them from the responsibility of mastery. They try enough things to feel interesting, but never remain long enough to become excellent. A chosen enemy demands loyalty. Once the final thing is found, the standard changes. The pursuit is no longer a hobby. It becomes a campaign. The calendar bends around it. The habits support it. The environment protects it. The distractions get removed because they are no longer harmless. Every serious commitment requires a burial. You bury the other versions you could casually entertain, so the chosen version can live with force. Taking one thing to a whole new level means giving it the kind of obedience that changes your identity. If the chosen thing is fitness, you stop treating training as a mood-based activity and start treating it as maintenance of command. If it is business, you stop playing with ideas and start making offers, taking feedback, improving the product, and tracking results. If it is content, you stop dreaming about the channel and start producing with discipline while improving the craft. If it is writing, you write when the sentences feel ugly and return until the page becomes sharp. The higher level is not mysterious. It means more consistency, cleaner measurement, better feedback, fewer excuses, and a refusal to keep restarting from the beginning every time motivation collapses.
Edwin Locke spent 35 years and more than 400 studies chasing a single question about what actually drives human achievement, and the answer that emerged from all that research was clarity, the finding that a clear and specific goal predicts success more powerfully than nearly any other factor, more than talent, more than intelligence, more than raw desire. Vague ambition, the kind most people carry, produces vague results because the mind cannot organize itself around a fog, cannot mobilize its resources toward a target it has not actually defined. The man who says he wants to be successful, to get in shape, to make more money, has given his brain nothing to aim at, only a direction, a mood, a wish, and wishes do not marshal effort the way targets do. The men who succeed are not distinguished by wanting more than everyone else. They are distinguished by wanting something specific, defined precisely enough that every day they know exactly what they are working toward. The difference between wanting more and wanting this specific thing is the difference between a wish and a plan, because more is infinite and undefined. A horizon that recedes as you approach it, while a specific target is finite and reachable, something you can actually organize your life around and eventually attain. The man who wants more money will never arrive, because there is always more, and his ambition, lacking a defined endpoint, dissolves into a permanent low-grade dissatisfaction that never resolves into action. The man who wants a specific sum by a specific date for a specific purpose has given himself something entirely different, a concrete objective that his mind can work backward from. breaking it into steps, measuring progress against it, knowing whether he is winning or losing. This matters because vague wanting produces vague striving that produces vague results. An entire life of effort that never quite lands anywhere, while specific wanting produces focused striving that actually reaches its target. A specific goal transforms your behavior in ways a vague one never can, because clarity about the destination automatically generates clarity about the actions required to reach it, the defined endpoint casting light backward onto the path that leads to it. When you know exactly what you are aiming for, your mind begins filtering the world differently, noticing opportunities relevant to the goal, screening out distractions that do not serve it, organizing your daily choices around the target without your having to consciously force each decision. The vague goal cannot do this because a mind aimed at get healthier has no way to evaluate whether any particular choice serves the aim, while a mind aimed at a specific measurable target can assess every option against it clearly. This is why specificity matters far beyond mere motivation, because it actually restructures your perception and your decision-making, turning a scattered life into a focused one simply by giving the focus something precise to lock onto. The date attached to a goal is not a minor detail, but a crucial component, because a target without a deadline is a target without urgency, an ambition that can always be pursued tomorrow since it is not due at any particular time, and what can always be done tomorrow is usually never done at all. The deadline creates the pressure that drives action, converting a someday wish into a now imperative, forcing the abstract intention into a concrete timeline that demands movement. Without it, the goal floats free of time, perpetually deferred, always in the comfortable future where hard things live, when we do not actually intend to do them. Why this matters is that human beings respond to deadlines in a way they never respond to open-ended intentions, marshalling effort as the due date approaches, and a goal robbed of its deadline is robbed of the very mechanism that would have driven you to achieve it. Attach a date, and the goal acquires the urgency that transforms it from a dream into a project. The reason behind the goal, the why that sits beneath the what, is what sustains the effort when the initial excitement fades and the work becomes hard. Because a specific target with a compelling reason survives the difficult middle stretch that kills goals held for no deeper purpose. The man pursuing a goal simply because it sounds good will abandon it the moment the cost gets real, but the man who knows exactly why he wants this specific thing, who has connected it to something that genuinely matters to him, has a source of fuel that keeps burning when the surface motivation runs out. The reason is what you return to on the days you want to quit, the anchor that holds you to the goal through the resistance that makes lesser commitments fall away. This is why the fully formed goal includes not just the specific what and the specific when, but the specific why, because clarity of purpose is what carries a man through the long, unglamorous middle where most ambitions die. And a goal without a reason is a goal without the endurance to survive its own pursuit. Specificity also makes progress measurable, and measurability is what allows correction, because a clear goal gives you a precise standard against which to assess where you actually are, revealing whether you are on track or falling behind, while there is still time to adjust. The vague goal cannot be measured, and what cannot be measured cannot be managed. So the man with the foggy ambition never knows if he is progressing or drifting. Unable to correct, because he has no clear standard to correct against. The specific goal, by contrast, generates constant feedback, each day's progress checkable against the defined target, every deviation visible early enough to fix. Why this matters is that achievement is rarely a straight line and almost always requires ongoing adjustment, and only a specific goal provides the measurement that makes adjustment possible.